Today we're going to be getting nasty with some chemical weapons. Welcome to the Breakout. We're going to discuss a few tactics throughout this scenario. It's actually based off of the Mayaguez incident where some hostile forces overran a tanker ship and took a bunch of hostages, and the US responded by launching an assault. So we're going to use our chemical weapons or our tear gas similar to what the Marines used during their assault on the ship. Unfortunately, we do not have a ship, so we can't simulate that. But basically, we're going to tear gas this general area to drive any civilians away, or at least drive any defending forces out of this area, at which point we're going to press more northwest, right? And then we're going to secure this objective as well where the hostages could possibly be being held. All right, I'm going to bring that screenshot back over so we can talk about it real quick. It was a hastily planned action with little intelligence, and we faced a vastly more entrenched unit and a more powerful enemy than that was expected. All right, so that's kind of what we're simulating here, or it's a surprise, or it could be what we're simulating here. Except this time we kind of planned it out. We're going to tear gas similar to what they did in the Mayaguez incident, and then we're going to recon it with our Bradleys. We have mobile ATs, tanks, and mechanized infantry, and finally we do have an engineer support platoon to demine the area if there are any mines. So the first thing we need to do is drop our tear gas, so let's kind of get nasty with some chemicals. So let's right click our unit and kind of simulate our barrage. We're going to say non-persistent chemical. And I actually modded this in to be relatively weaker than normal chemical. Unfortunately, it's going to still down. It's going to wound, or they're going to be falling out. They won't be destroyed, but they are going to have a rough time. You know, they're going to take a bit of not casualties, but they're just going to be wounded. So one of our next scenarios may be handling patient evacuation and handling like mass casualties, or at least mass wounded right here. So we know there's a defended position right here. We're not quite sure what it is, but we're going to drop tear gas on it. Then we're going to kind of open up this area and allow us to get into the objective. And then we should actually drop one on the rear to kind of set up, like cover our exit as we go into the next objective. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to push in. The next thing you're going to notice is the civilians in this scenario. Since this is more of a coin counterinsurgency scenario as well. If you go to our SOP manager, everyone's on hold until fired on. Unfortunately, I can't create a neutral third party in this game, so the civilians are technically East Germans, and they are visible on them. They're not visible, but once we recon them, you'll see them, and you'll understand why we have to hold fire until fired upon. So let's kind of array our forces. We're going to push our Bradley spotting system up. Then we're going to move our mobile AT, and we're going to kind of stick to these roadways because there's no reason for us to really go into the trees or kind of use all of this terrain around us. Because we're on a convoy mission, we want to be fast, we want to be merciless, and this tear gas is actually going to slow us down a little bit because we got to wait for it to kind of dissipate, and then we're going to push to this objective. So if we get on this highway, we can go around, but realistically, we're going to see what happens. And we can kind of adjust our plan as things kind of go along. And we may have turns where we just kind of wait and see what we can do. So let's just work our way up, get nice and close to some of these objectives. That mechanized infantry is a little bit close. Followed by this tank, where we're just going to have our tank get into position as well. And then once he's in position, we'll move through. And then we'll use our engineers are going to follow up. And they're always going to be at the end of our convoy or the rear of our convoy. Mostly because we're going to need them to deal with any IEDs that are on the battlefield. So let's hit screen. Let's kind of crank the volume down a little bit because it's going to be really loud. And let's hit start. 15 minutes are going to go. We have 8 hours to run this operation. As you see, we just start dropping gas. So I could probably mod that to say something else since it's already modded. So, oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't adjust the amount of gas we're dropping. So right now we're dropping 20 shells, so we only have 80 rounds. We're only going to be able to hit 4 locations. I believe we only marked 4. All right, so there's our first civilian on the battlefield. As you see, that's modded in that as well, so we're going to have some civilians. As you see, he is an East German. He does have the hostile red. We're not going to engage him as long as he doesn't shoot us. We don't shoot him. So that's just something we need to know. As you see, he's kind of pulled back, and he's allowing us to kind of move into the area. So when we think about civilians as well, lost to chemical contamination, 1 subunit. We can only do so much non-violent things, or non like hostile things. All right, so our weather's changed a little bit. That's perfectly fine. So we kind of got to wait for this to dissipate. Once it dissipates, we're going to push through, and then we will array our forces to hit this back line. So that might take a few turns. So what we could do is we could either go around here to this left, or we could go around the right. That's kind of covering our assault. It might take a few turns, so basically it would be around an hour. Oh, nope, it's already gone. So let's hit proceed. So we got one more assault coming in. Let's right click our tear gas right here, and let's ensure he has plenty of firepower. So let's click on our not our SOP manager. Let's click on our subunit inspector, our unit and dashboard. And as you see, where our key ammo is a bit low, so basically he's going to drop another 20 rounds here, and we're just not going to let that happen. We're just going to cancel that, and then we're going to go directly into rest and resupply, so we have more tear gas to drop on this rear objective. So something that happened during the Mayaguez incident is they tear gassed the ship, but when they got on the ship, there were no civilians, so they offloaded all of those civilians and took them to another staging point, which is kind of something which is unfortunately you don't really want to happen. So we're going to move forward. We're going to get our mech infantry in first. We're going to get our mobile AT in next. And then we're going to switch, honestly, into assault. Once we get into assault, we're going to... Oh, he's going to stick to the roadways. We're just going to delay this action. Hopefully we don't move into it. We're going to delay it by at least like 20 minutes. So at least one more turn. 15 minutes. 18, and we can adjust that later if needed. Our AT doesn't need to screen for us. This is our main unit, so let's click him, and we're going to start pushing our way through this objective. We're going to hit screen once more, but we're also going to adjust the delay on this to hopefully they're not going to do too much for another 14 minutes, but they're not going to move into that gas. That's the one thing that we don't want to do is move our own units into our own tear gas. We do not have, we do have gas masks and we do have nuclear biological prevention systems, but even moving units into tear gas, they're going to suffer like a decreased morale. So same with this unit. He's just going to move along this roadway. We're going to give him 2 moves. We'll reduce him by 14 minutes as well. I believe I can just type 14. I can. And then finally, we're going to allow our engineers to follow up here in a moment. We're going to get our engineers just short of everything. So let's close that, and we're going to bring him, and he's going to stop with our mechanized infantry. So basically, we're just kind of going to delay a movement for at least one more turn. All right, we spotted another civilian. They moved out of the gas, and that's just perfectly fine. Gas is finally dissipated. And then now we're going to start our next couple of moves. Our mech infantry is going to move into an assault position. That's going to take a bit more time to move through this objective. And then once they do that, that's going to be much better for us. They're going to mount back up, and then if we come across any hostiles, we will engage them. All right, so let's hit start. Mech infantry screening. There goes our engineers. Engineers on deck. Tanks are moving. Tanks somehow did get in front of us, which is unfortunate, so let's take a look. We got to be really careful because in this scenario, I do have a lot of hostile units that are set to ambush us. Just like that. All right, so our tanks do begin taking battery fire. They're moving off. He begins engaging that unit, which will investigate him. It looks like it's... we're kind of missing it, but we're kind of engaging him. So we lost line of sight. So that is really not super duper ideal. So when we move on to this hex right here, we're going to kind of see if we can get off of it. Nope, either way we move through that bad boy. So these mech infantry we lost line of sight on. Let's hopefully we can get our Bradley going as well. Our Bradley is going as well. So we're going to have a lot of firepower on that hex. So let's kind of pull everything off and see if we can get relaunch an assault on it. All right, there go our mech infantry. Ooh, look at that bad boy. All right, it looks like we have a mobile AT gun up there who's currently targeting our Bradley. I did not know he could see down there. Mech infantry does begin re-engaging us. I hope we're not attacking those civilians, but we're going to see. It looks like they're opting to engage the civilians instead of the units who are actually shooting at them, which is kind of strange because the civilians are unarmed. So we're actually going to drop artillery on that position. This guy is kind of wreaking havoc on us, so both these units are kind of giving us the guns, that's for sure. So we just gotta remember we don't have a lot of firepower. We mostly just have tear gas. We have tanks. We don't really have a lot of things to kind of push through this. So let's just drop tear gas in these two locations. Let's hit 20 is fine. And we're just going to keep chilling. He's pushing through. I don't think he really needs to do that. But if he goes that way, I'd rather him stop and begin engaging this unit. So let's hit delete this waypoint right here. And they're both going to move towards the objective. Unfortunately, we can't push that far at this moment in time. We're going to try and get our tanks back on the battlefield. And then hopefully we can kind of shut that AT down here in a moment. And then lastly, what's this mobile AT? We need to get this mobile AT going as well. And then if he gets into position, he can return some fire. That's really interesting that they opted to engage the civilians. That's kind of funny. So let's hit start. Like, we can't control everything. If the AI is going to engage the civilians, it's just going to be a bad time. It's unfortunate, but he is taking out our Bradleys. He is putting down a lot of firepower. So, I mean, similar to the Mayaguez incident, right? We did a bunch of things, but we needed a lot more firepower to just drive these two units out. And we are dropping tear gas on this unit, and hopefully that kind of drives him back into a kind of a worse position. And we finally get some combat power onto those units. So let's see what we do. And we lost line of sight of that AT gun. Oh no, he's still chilling in that. He's still chilling. They're still opting to shoot the civilians, which is kind of wild. So he must have some pretty decent nuclear, biological, chemical protection. Wow, we're in cover too. These are like BMPs or like BTRs. So he's no longer going to be able to fall back. He'll have to go to the left or to the right. That's, oh, I put that unit on. Interesting. That was supposed to be BTRs. That's going to make it a bit more interesting right there. If we can get this tank into position, we can kind of open it up. And let's see what happens. Oh, there goes our mech infantry. So they're pulling back. There's still one unit here. We're trying to get some units into this objective and get some firepower downrange. So, dude, this ATGM is showing no mercy. That's really funny. Dude is showing no mercy right now. Really powerful unit, especially for how much it costs. Let's see what happens next turn. It's kind of funny. I think they're struggling to dance around the civilians, that's for sure. Let's see what we can do. And see if we can actually cross this area. If not, that's fine. We're just really trying to break this stalemate. And I think we gave the enemy way, way, way too much firepower. All right, next turn we're going to push our recon units forward if they're still alive. And then we will make some adjustments. And try and get through. I mean, it's playing out similar to that incident, that's for sure. No lack of firepower, lack of preparation. And then basically just lack of everything. Failure to understand that we don't have the correct weapon systems. And let's see what we can do with this. See if we can kind of punch through. We've lost line of sight on a lot of units. I wonder if they're pulling back. There is one more thing I want to show you before we finish this up. And see if we can get to these hostages, right? And I think if we think about like the Mayaguez incident, if we kind of like turn this a little bit to be more realistic, the hostages were released. by the enemy, they weren't so much recaptured. So like we got stuck in this fight, or the US Marines got stuck in this fight on the battlefield, and since the resistance was so intense, they weren't able to make really any headway, and they suffered a few amount of casualties. And I believe the last 3 names on the Vietnam Memorial are from that incident, or the last 3 Marines that were like just like executed during the event, or like after they were on the island. And I don't know exactly what happened during that event, why they were left, or why they weren't recovered, or where the breakdown happened. But I think it's just happened. I think it was the Chimera Rogue, if I remember correctly. I need to do a lot more research into it. But I'm glad when we build a scenario that's supposed to represent something that historically happened, it kind of similar, it plays out that way. And basically we would need to push forward, and this would be really, really dangerous. So if we were to like move this recon unit forward right here, I'm surprised we aren't spotting our houses. It seems like we destroyed our houses. I actually added houses in this game. Let's see what happens real quick with this as we recon forward. It's basically bait. We don't really have any infantry on the battlefield right now. So we're going to play through 2 more turns, or 1 more turn. We're going to see if we can kind of breach this area. If not, that's going to be unfortunate. Let's see what happens. We have tanks providing overwatch, which is really good. We could adjust their the way they engage. I want to see if this unit moves. He's still going through his command cycles. That's all he's doing. So he's just starting to get there. We can pull him up and see what we decided to do with him. See what it does. Right here, this is our spotter. Oh, for some reason, did we not commit? All right, this unit should move by 1232. So basically in the next 2 turns, he'll be in position. So let's see what happens. See if he just wants to go. All right, 1 more unit spotted. Let's see if he starts moving. There he goes. And he moved directly into a minefield. So that's another failed intelligence report, that there were mines on the battlefield. So that is, I mean, everything adds up. I mean, we need more firepower, even for like how small this force is. The amount of AT they had, the minefield, the preparation, the defensive positions, as well as the mixture of civilians, kind of really complicated the scenario and made it a lot more challenging than it really needed to be. If we just came in here with guns blazing and fired on every unit that we saw without waiting to return fire, it would be a lot more, it would be probably a lot easier. And then we need to give our civilians nuclear, biological, chemical protection. That's something we need to do so they don't fall out. And then maybe they just dispersed. I'm kind of shocked that this unit kind of just hung out in the smoke, but he does have biological, chemical protection. That's the video, guys. Peace out.